So, if you guys haven't heard it yet. So, dual income, no kids. It's a term that's kind of been hot recently. It's basically people generally above the age of 28-ish who don't have kids. And one of the problems that we're seeing with these kinds of people is that after a certain time, if you and your partner you decide to not have kids, you start seeing that your friends often do. And once your friends become parents, I've heard that from these users that they tend to grow apart from these kinds of friends, just because you have a lot less in common, your schedules vary, it's probably less fun to be around kids compared to what it was like before as a friend group. So the idea is kind of to connect dinks with other dinks within the city. So it's sort of like grouper for dinks. So can you get all these people together on a night out, creating stronger friendships, but without kids? Next slide, please.
I'll do
Go
that.
ahead.
So here are core assumptions that we came into the idea with before we went out and sort of talked to people. So assumptions about the customer. We assume that they are actually seeking to make friends with other dinks, so people in their situation. We assume that they enjoy city nightlife and going out on group activities, and that they're inherently social people and they're willing to meet strangers. They have some expendable income, primarily heterosexual. We came up with that idea because we discussed that the homosexual community or the gay community actually probably has a lot of built-in community activities, I would think. It's like something that naturally, since the gay couples probably don't have kids, or more of them don't have kids, so they're more likely to already have activities or like bars that cater to that community that facilitate like meeting other couples like themselves.
They would. There's less of a need for this service for them,
right,
compared to heterosexual gay couples.
Yeah. Live in metro areas, obviously like the higher population density, and likely dual or high combined income couples. So our assumptions about...
Come on this side, you can't see.
Oh, no, you're good. You're good.
Good.
You're good.
Assumptions about the problem, that dink couples are in the minority in a friend group where most have kids. So we're saying that within a friend group, there's going to be like the one or two couples that don't have kids when they get older, and where their friends all start to have kids, and therefore they're kind of like left out, and they don't have other people in their friend group to hang out with anymore. Also, we're also assuming that they have fewer opportunities to make new friends. So we're assuming that they are lacking the opportunity that our service could provide.
Yeah, parents as an example, they have plenty of opportunities to meet other parents like them through daycare, school activities, going to the park together and meeting other parents with kids there. So these dink couples don't have those opportunities.
And lastly, our assumptions about the solution. So our assumption is that it's a good idea to match 3 dink couples in a metro area and get them together for a night out. Like, that would be valuable to them. Assume that dink couples would be willing to pay what we consider like a concierge fee, like value in the connection that we're making. And ultimately that this service will help dinks to make new friends.
That they can actually relate to. Yeah.
Next
slide, please. Tyler, you want to?
This is just the landing page that we put up. So this was we put this up originally for the last assignment, just as a test, and we ran a Facebook advertising campaign with kind of not great results, but not a huge sample size either. So it was tough to really draw any conclusions from it, but just a simple sign up, and then it would send your email address to Ryan's email account, basically. And like we've been doing like stat tracking on it. I think we kind of submitted it to some kind of like vote up like product sites and stuff just to see.
Yeah, but they tend to not promote products that don't actually
don't actually have product. But yeah, just we just see if we got any traffic from that.
Yeah, way to gauge interest. Next slide. Okay, so the product itself, yeah, it's a website that matches up dating couples. The algorithm that we were thinking of, it would take into account just some basic interests, hobbies, economic status, what your profession is. Chances are you're looking for couples and friends that match your interests and hobbies, etc. So the first round of drinks are covered. It's very much like the grouper model, where the money that you put up front, part of that money would go towards that first round of drinks. So the strategy we did in terms of going out there and seeing if engaging interest from users and pitching them this was just show them the landing page, and don't really prime them with the idea or anything. Just put it in front of them. Don't really bias them with anything, and just gauge and figure out what the feedback is from there. And just kind of see if our landing page communicates the product effectively and actually gets the user to want to sign up and provide their email address to get more information. Next slide, please. Ryan, you wanna-
So we came up with some conclusions after we had discussed. We talked about the idea.
We talked to a couple of different
Yeah.
couples, so yeah.
And here's just some like really basic, sort of like conclusions we came up with from what we talked about. Essentially, not everyone's going to like to do the same thing. Kind of harkens back to this Malcolm Gladwell speech about pasta sauce or something, where ultimately they came up with the idea that not everyone's going to like the same pasta sauce. There's going to be like several bell curves. So in the same vein, we can't just have one activity. We can't just have everyone go out to a bar. So we want to offer them more than one possibility, which could be go to a bar, a restaurant, go bowling.
Go bowling.
Bowling is a great place if you want a somewhat quiet environment conducive to talking in a group, but also having like a group activity. Were there any that people you
Yeah,
talked to?
the one I talked to, she's like, oh, maybe like a night out at the museum. Basically, it's like you don't necessarily need alcohol to make friends with people. Debatable.
And
That's for me.
and what people were willing to, or what they valued our service at on top of like the free drinks or whatever
Or
activity it
subsidized
was.
cost of a ticket. Maybe.
Right.
Yeah.
They thought like $10 to $15 that they would pay on top for that connection. That's per couple. So
Another thing that came up was, let's make sure what we should be asking couples what their intentions are about kids, because you might be a dink, but there are different kinds of dinks. There might be ones who are like, ew, I hate kids, no, never, ever, ever, and then maybe you could ask them. Someone might say that maybe in our future it's possible. So those are different kinds of dinks, and ideally you would want to match them based on that as well, because you don't want to match couples that have different morals about this, since we're trying to bring together people with like-minded about this topic. Some of the feedback we got, like they love the idea of being able to meet things like them. Suggested events feature, we were pitching to them as well. They like that, because it's sometimes hard to come up with ideas of what to do in the city as a group. And they said our logo was a little too anti-family, because if the landing page showed it, it's just like four people holding hands and it's just a cross through it. So maybe it's a little intense for that.
And one other thing that people mentioned, like one person I talked to, he was like, well, yeah, I'm in this situation that all my friends have kids. Like he was a dink, but he was also from around here. So he already knows a lot of people and he doesn't have trouble like going out with them. So it might be something that's people that are moving into new towns might find this more valuable.
Yep.
Next slide.
Next slide, please.
Next slide, please.
Oh, there it is. Okay, revisions. So yeah, that's the kind of what I was saying. Definitely not ask users if kids are definitely not in the future, maybe one day, or if they creep you out. Improve our logo, make the icons more gender neutral. That was a comment that we got. Potentially change the name. Some people don't love that. Maybe we won't specify specifically dual income, because one of the partners just may not work, or they might volunteer. where it's just low pay work. So we don't want to exclude anybody who still might be able to enjoy the service. And yeah, allowing users also, this was a revision that was pitched to us, to mark what kinds of activities they might like. So maybe one couple will say, I'm willing to go bowling, and I'm willing to go to the museum, but I'm not willing to go to the bar. So you'd want to match couples up who would have those kinds of preferences together. And I think that's it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Any questions?
Is this where we go?
This is where we
Yeah.
go.
Go.
So, can you answer a quick question? Is it were you asked to think at all about growth strategy yet? Because it feels like some of the decisions that you make here could heavily impact how you decide to acquire users. Is that something you guys have thought at all about?
Are you saying like traction channels, maybe? Or?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So we had a couple of them. One was so Meetup.com does something similar, just on a much smaller scale. So you could go to these meetups and pitch them like, hey, here's a whole other network that you could reach out to people with. I don't know, guys. You probably have some more traction channel ideas that we.
So one of my thoughts was that I think that I want this application for me. I'm like, you've really well described me. I don't know if one of you is in this or all of you are in
What
this.
do you answer on that first bullet?
Which one?
Yeah. Are you A, B, or C?
Oh, I think I'm B.
Okay.
I think I'm being forced into B.
Oh my
Ooh.
gosh.
Wow. And it's on film.
So there, I think that you're really onto something when you talk about couples that move together, and there's actually a lot of like very specific types of couples who are in that, and
Sure.
so my fiance is a doctor, and a lot of her friends will move as couples to do residency
Sure.
together, right? It's like
Mhm.
super common, and so I think that if you went from this concept of like there's this big problem out there to hey, residents need a way to meet other people to meet up with.
Yeah, it's more targeted, but
Right.
like it might be a user who'd use it a lot, and then that's a good way to start with a niche who uses it all the time, and then that spreads more organically,
Exactly.
rather than trying to tackle everybody in a city.
Yep.
Yeah, that's really good feedback about that. Yeah. Cool.
I was a little unclear as to where the price hits. Like, where do they pay? When do they pay?
You pay up front, so you pay us. We haven't figured out the exact price yet. Let's say it's
About $30.
$15. Yeah, $15 or $30, whatever it is for the couple, and that covers our service of, organizing all of the logistics of the date, getting you all together, covering the first round of drinks, or subsidizing
So it's
the
price
cost.
per date.
Yeah, per day.
So it's not when you sign up; it's when you get matched and agree to
Sorry, yeah, that's
go on a meetup or a date, if you will.
yeah.
Just curious, this is at like the most top of mind thing here, but assuming this is something you guys want to flesh out, I'm curious how you're going to avoid the non-platonic uses of this. Mismatch.
Swingers?
Like
Yeah,
swingles?
Yeah,
mismatches
we
of
thought about that.
expectations.
Yeah, we definitely thought about that. If they use it that way, is that
It's
bad?
fine if
Or
there's
no?
two sets of people making similar expectations,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
I mean, this is the way that, all
Yeah, how do you avoid like a
All
really
networking
awkward
sites,
date,
yeah.
basically?
Yeah, I mean,
networking
I don't know.
sites go that
I don't know
way.
if it's as simple as like writing on the website, no, this is not a swingers website, to like discourage that kind of behavior. I don't know if people will still go and try to use it that way. If they use it and they find each other, great. I don't know. Ideally, that would be a small minority, and I would imagine we could build in the future where you could like rate each other, right? So like if you go on one of these dates and like it's like it's a swingers kind of situation, they would contact us and be like, hey, listen, like the people you matched us up with, this was their intention. Maybe that's something that we mark down, and we.
I think we'd want to give them a refund in that situation.
Yeah.
Not
too.
only that, yeah, you give them a refund, but you also don't want to throw these, swingers at people who don't want to do that.
Yeah. So I mean, I think the challenge with most social networks is it's only as good as many people you have that match each other's interests, and so I think most social networks are oriented towards individuals rather than couples. So I think that's interesting that you're, unless they're swinger sites, interested, in sort of marketing to or attracting groups of people. But I think I would just second what Tristan said, which is you gotta focus on a particular market group, otherwise any marketing you do is gonna be so disparately attractive that your number of matches that are actually successful will be pretty small.
Yeah, absolutely. And with the whole resident couples, it's just, it kind of inherently filters it out by people with common interests. Like you've already got that profession in common at least.
The one thing I challenge you on the common interests side is that this is something that's being written about more every year, but the internet fractionalizes, like it puts everybody in these little zones of algorithmically defined common interests, and sometimes the reason that you want a social engagement like this is to step outside of that.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't necessarily assume that I want to hang out with people that are just like the people I spend my days with working.
Yeah. So what would your baseline level of match be? Like if it's not specific interests, is it
I think
like,
I would want to do a swipe model. Just there's something about seeing people's faces and a little tagline about this is who we want to meet up with.
Sure.
But I think that humans are really good at that kind of
That
discrimination.
filtering.
yeah, and it kind of pictures like you and your partner with that couple. Like, hey, I mean, you really don't know based on that, but it's better than maybe just leaving it up to us to cook some magic up.
Yeah, I think that there's very few activities that most people don't want to do, or I'm saying that wrong. There's a lot of activities that a lot of different people will want to do, right?
Yeah.
Movies, dinners, bars, sporting events. I mean, all that stuff different. It's really something other than the activity you want to do. The activity describes what you want to do with this couple to meet them, but not necessarily what would resonate for you with that couple. And so I would sort of challenge you to spend more time making sure that it's like the subjective information is more easily felt. Otherwise, it's so hard to coordinate schedules, even without, I mean, I have a kid, but even for people without kids, it's hard to coordinate schedules because often people who don't have kids have a lot of other things going on in their life. And so, like, if you put all that effort towards scheduling and getting to, an event with a person, you want to have a high degree of success.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I don't know how Grouper specifically does that, but I guess you all opt and show what your open schedule is, right? And then the matching is based off of that as well. Would that solve that? Are you worried about schedules not matching up? I guess I didn't understand.
No,
the
I'm
question.
worried about people making the effort to go meet somebody. It's people who are in a relationship have gotten past the I'm gonna go have 30 dates and only one of them's gonna work out phase.
Right.
So now they're
choosing.
admittedly they're happy they're out of that phase, right? Like so like they hate dating, right? Like a lot of people will say that in this
Right.
group, they hate dating. So now you have to make it so that it doesn't feel like you're dating couples because they just got out of that whole phase or they've been out of that
Right,
phase or
right.
that kind of.
Hopefully, having 3 couples makes it that way. It doesn't feel like a double date. It's kind of just like
Yeah.
We definitely consider like other numbers than just 3 couples.
yeah, you could have 4. I don't know.
There
Depends.
are variables.
You really want to push the envelope.
So did you model a lot of this off of Grouper?
The pricing and yeah, just the 3v3. Yeah, that was basically
Why did you assume that what they're doing works?
based on the press and the media that we read about, and like how like if you go on their website, like and I believe they have investors as well, but they have a real business model. It's not just like an app, right? Like they are charging people. People are going on these dates, and they're all over the country. Like they're in many different cities, so they seem to have some level of success. Yeah, and they're hiring, so they've got to have some sort of funding there too.
My last thought is that I don't know how long we have to do these things. My last thought is that your revenue model right now is kind of one time, and then you only need so many couple
Right.
friends. Like you're busy people probably, and so maybe you pay a couple of times, and then you're kind of done.
You're
if you
set.
like those
It's
people.
possible.
One thing that is just like maybe slightly auxiliary to this, functionality-wise, is that it's insanely hard to find times to meet up with people that you already know. And so let's say that you're in a city, you have 10 couple friends. The email chains that you have to do just to find a night that people, so like there might be some type of recurring revenue model just to say, hey, these are the people that I want to connect with. Will you help me find out just some times that we can get together?
After you've gone on date dates with
Yeah.
them. Yeah, that could be interesting. Yeah, that way it's like
Anyway,
you're still keeping them as a user.
Yeah.
Yeah, like all those, dating sites like Tinder and all that, like usually people keep coming back because they're not going to find their love the first time.
Exactly.
Whereas you might find good enough friends the first time with this and then never use it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Long-term engagement is
Yeah,
incredibly important.
that's a good point.
I do have one final question for you guys, and I may have missed this because I stepped out, but how many people were you actually able to meet with and ask these questions?
I think we each talked to one dating couple. So not a lot, but
Okay.
it was enough to get like a couple pages of feedback. Yeah. Yeah. Ideally, every week we say this, if we had a little bit more time, then we would have took these revisions, implemented them on the website, made the landing page include all of this based on their feedback, and then pitch it to 3 other dating couples and see how their reaction changes compared to the first set.
Sure.
So that'll be our next step.
Maybe including Tristan's comment about like, okay, well, what is the experience you're actually looking for with these couples? Might be a good way to approach it as
Absolutely.
well, to open it up a little wider than what you're expecting out of say group.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
all right, thanks guys.
Thanks.
Cool. All right, guys. So as you may know, we're Team Video, and our goal is to create ads that create interest, to build interest that provides better data. So changing the standard video advertisement into something interactive that both the user finds more interesting and also collects data for the companies that are advertising. Next slide, please. We'll scroll. You ready?
All right. So our core assumptions, right? So we assume that our users, people who watch YouTube, who watch Hulu, barring Netflix for now, but typically when you watch YouTube, you're bombarded with ads, right? So our core assumptions are customers are looking for advertisements that engage them more and require less time. When you're watching a video on YouTube, you can spend either 30 seconds to 60 seconds watching a useless ad about Budweiser. And I don't know if you drink it or not, but it's not something to drink. So our problem is long advertisements, consumers don't watch them, but we want to provide a great value for our advertisers, those that create these ads, right? So our solution, a software service platform, connect third-party developers via an affiliate program, and also broker gaming ads that are created by third parties and sell these gamified ads to larger brands. Next slide.
Hold up. Yeah. All right. So our product, it's an interactive advertisement, pretty much for gathering data about the users and also kind of making a better user end experience. Our main, framework behind this is to make it based off of gamification. So to really use gamification in these interactive ads and to really kind of make it become a habit for the users that watch Hulu, that watch YouTube, that when they go on to watch the shows, they expect these advertisements and are kind of excited and not kind of dreading that they're coming their way. So description, the advertisements are shown on video platforms either prior to the show starting or kind of in the middle, kind of depending, I guess, what the consumer or the user prefers. That's one of the questions that we're going to be asking. And also whether they prefer kind of games or surveys, depending on what they like better. The sales strategy is to use metrics that we gather from our pilot program and compare them to control groups and video groups to demonstrate which group had higher attention, which group enjoyed their kind of video watching experience better, and just kind of see if this framework would really work.
Okay, so we sent out a survey to a couple of our potential end users, and with the results, 71% said they wouldn't pay for primary video service, and 75% prefer to engage in an interactive ad rather than traditional video advertisements, and 61% would watch 10 hours of online TV every week.
So we changed our survey a little bit for round 2 to focus more on the things that, or the results we got from our first survey. 47% of our users preferred a game to a conventional video ad. 22% preferred a promotional offer similar to like a Netflix type service. And 23% preferred a standard ad. We actually ran another option of this where we talked about what people were doing while they were watching the videos online. So if somebody was in like relaxing in bed versus up doing work and just had it in the background, and we came up with some other metrics as well. But overall, our results were very encouraging, and it seems like as long as someone is upright, they'd rather just do a couple clicks and give our advertisers some information and quickly end the ad than watch a 15-second video ad to get what they're trying to get. And that's our presentation.
Did you guys mention how many people you actually?
Oh, we got 18 for the first survey, and we got 22 for the second one.
So, if I understand correctly, you have set out to, or what you have set out to figure out and what you've come back with is that the advertising consumer has a preference between, type A and type B.
Yes.
But they're not the ones paying for the ads.
Correct.
So what are your assumptions and what have you validated in terms of on the advertiser side?
We decided that the best way to prove this would be to create a pilot program where we compared the end user's retention of an advertiser's data or their message
Right.
To a standard video ad, and also the amount of data that the advertiser gets back. And we compare via scientific method a control group versus users actually using our service, that the results would be good enough for the advertiser to want to use that service instead of a traditional conventional ad. So it's pretty disruptive, but
So pretty much we're trying to prove the value that we can prove these metrics and the ROI exists. So our real first consumer is going to be these advertising firms because we're going to watch what they have out there already. For example, Wyden Kennedy, they shoot out a video campaign for every single one of my clients, right? So we're going to track what their results are and also shoot out the video ad, like I said, via a pilot program and compete and see which has the best analytics on the back end for that advertiser. And then once we can prove that to an advertiser, like, our users pay more attention, they like your ads more, you should use our platform.
Do you have an assumption that more data is preferred by the advertiser? Like, because you stated earlier that there's an increase in the quantity of data you're producing. So
Sure.
do you have this assumption that more data is good?
Coca-Cola, maybe not, but other advertisers do want data. And if we can get big data and push out a brand message, then I think we can appeal to multiple groups of advertisers.
But is the KPI you're measuring like the amount of data or the actual conversion?
Conversion and the amount of data as well. So those are both KPIs.
I've asked 20 questions. I think we should stop and we should go.
So when I hear you talking about this, I see it a little bit differently than. So these exist today. I've interacted with them. I watch a lot of Hulu, and I've been given that option. And I'm the person who just watches the 15-second ad, or rather has it on in the background while I don't pay any attention to it. But I totally believe that there are people that engage with these ads because people are doing them today. So it seems like what you guys are proposing is less about doing something that doesn't exist and rather creating a scalable model whereby people can use this for a lower cost than engaging a full service agency and all of this, right?
Right.
So while your pitch is very focused on the benefits of the medium, and I think that's an important part of it, I think that you ultimately have to get to, well, this is what people are doing in the industry right now, this is how much it costs, these are what the results look like, and we're going to do all of that for less money or for whatever.
Or better, right.
Yeah. The benchmark that would have been really interesting to me is if there's probably some Ad Age article or something that talks about this type of advertising and what some talking head thinks about it or what the actual results have been so far or something like that.
That's a good point.
I think that the case you're going to make is less about like what users prefer, because very often consumers will state all kinds of things that are highly misleading for decision making on the advertisement side, and more about I'd love to see this, but with statistics that are, I think, more valuable to the advertiser.
All right.
redesign.
Right, hi guys, we're
Hello.
Team Sale Pro. And we have a little bit of a design of a website, so let me walk you through what Sale Pro is. It's a website that aggregates searches across multiple websites, and it offers the capability to, it gives you recommendations similar to Kayak on whether to buy a certain product now or wait, let's say with 80% confidence, and that's right next to the track button. You can't see, but it's there. It also gives you expected discount. For example, in this case, the TV, the expected discount for this particular TV is 20 to 30%, and that's based on historical discounts across the product, the category, the brand, and the store. And then third, it also lets you set a limit buy order via that sliding bar, which is essentially allows you to purchase the product at your desired price, the price that you enter. We'll get into more details.
Okay, so getting into this, the customer or the user base, I guess we had some assumptions here. They're obviously it's people that want to save money. They're not cheap, they're just frugal. I guess I fit in that category. Savvy, they know how to use a computer. They've been on, they're probably a little bit Gen X, Y. They're just very they've used computers for most of their life. They're smart. They've already checked or considered their other sources, Amazon, eBay, whatever. They don't necessarily have the impulse to buy now, but they enjoy the thrill. They might enjoy the thrill of getting a good deal and beating others at the same game. And those looking to buy now have a comparable. Those looking to buy now have a comparable retail search engine on par with other competitors. It's expected they'll compare and consider Sales Pro as one of the shopping portals, and the hope is that the prediction model is accurate enough that they will, I guess, grow to trust the predictions, and they'll become reliable and repeat users. Scroll up a little bit.
Keep going to the next slide.
Right, it could be any age, of course. It could be a grandmother to a teenager, and the younger groups. The assumption is that they'll have less control. Maybe they're spending their parents' money, or they just they're not worried about like saving for tomorrow to buy something else. Older age groups have higher income. Provided they're employed with the recession being the way it is, was less inclined to save a buck and are less computer savvy. The older folks might be a little less computer savvy. The crossover range between Gen X, Gen Y seems to be ideal candidates, raising families, have stable incomes. They expect future growth in their income, but they're raising families, so they have to save money here and there, and they're frugal. Anyhow,
Okay.
I guess you did this.
Yeah, I can do this. We covered kind of the product itself. Just to get into a little bit more detail, the real value add is the kayak-like feature. There's no product currently out there which is telling you, buy it now with this % of confidence, and or wait because of a potential sale, and we're going to give a day range, so like within 45 days. We're also going to give you an expected discount. We're thinking about a 10% discount range based on historical prices, based on the product category, brand, store. Let's see. What's also different is that we're kind of taking the stock model where you can actually set a limit price order. So how much you're actually willing to pay for that product, you can actually utilize that sliding scale and put in that amount. So once it either gets there because it went on sale, we'll send you an email notification, or we'll just buy it directly for you on this platform. Let's see.
Sales strategy?
Yeah, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So for sales strategy, we're thinking of using, first of all, our kind of friends and family email blast everyone. I'm sure they're going to love that. And also advertise through social media, so Facebook, Twitter. That's number one. Number two is advertise through websites that already cater to people interested in the sale. So that's websites such as Slick Deal or Frugal Reddit. So those are the websites we can post our website on their forums.
Fat Wallet.
Fat Wallet, yes, a number of those. And then just to attract the first customer, we would offer 10% off their first purchase. And we would also do a referral program where if you refer a friend, then we would give not only you $10, but not only your friend $10, but also you $10. So it's kind of word of mouth type strategy.
Okay. So we also talked to a number of potential customers. We also sent out a survey. What we found out is that what people do like, you might really like a product, but you might not be willing to shell out your cash right away. So people kind of like that feature where you don't have to worry about that product. You're not constantly looking across websites. SalePro can just kind of do it for you. You don't have to worry about it. It's kind of more passive. Takes that time and money and energy away from you and having us to do it for you through this website. Potential customers we talked to viewed clothing to be an item that they'd consider waiting for, and I think the reason is maybe you have a lot of clothes. Assuming you have a lot of clothes in your closet already, you don't absolutely need that J. Crew sweater right now. You're willing to wait for it once it goes on sale. They really like that aggregation feature, having products across different websites on one platform. The ability to set the limit buy order is unique, without having to constantly search. It's there, you set it, and then you get notified, or it's purchased directly for you. The ability to buy a lower price than the current market price. Someone mentioned that it would be good so that consumers don't forget about the product, to kind of send them reminders like, hey, it's gone on sale, even though it might not have gotten to your limit order that you set. It's fluctuated and it's kind of going towards that price you put in. Features that potential customers do not like. Initially we're still in the phase where we're deciding whether to have technology products or mid to higher end apparel. I don't think it appeals to customers to be looking for tech products and apparel products on one platform. And I also think from our end, we would be positioning it very differently for those two types of customers. And there's some doubt, like, can you really predict the price of products accurately? Okay, so if you can scroll down just a little bit. Our conclusion from reaching out to potential customers is we need to really drill down whether we focus on tech or apparel. It might not make sense to have it all in one same interface. Let's see.
Was it the main conclusion?
The main conclusion is...
Well, I guess that gets down to the
Yeah,
next, yeah.
well, I was just going to say that we have to kind of think more about, our target customers are those that are not impulse purchasers, or the products that they're going for are not going to be those impulse things like cosmetics, or no, not cosmetics, that's not really an impulse purchase, but there are certain things where you need it, you want it now no matter what, and we want to target products that are not like that. And to make sure we are accurate in our kayak-like recommendations. Those are
Very
our conclusions.
important, yes.
Very important. That's the key, pretty much value add. And then we
Okay.
changed our core assumptions.
Yeah, so for core assumptions, some stayed the same, some have evolved. So we did find out that people are willing to wait longer for more expensive products, which makes sense. So if you're buying a $1,000 TV and it goes down 20%, then you're saving $200 versus if a product costs $20 to begin with, goes down by $4, you might not care. Also, we found out that customers, they don't tend to shop for apparel and electronics on the same website. So for example, Amazon, you kind of reserve it for electronics and everything else, and then apparel, you go probably somewhere else. So therefore, the conclusion was to sort of think about, what do we sell on the website. Another assumption was that people use the website if the trusted information is accurate. So the more accurate, the more transparency we can provide the consumer, the more trusting they will be. So that is information about expected discount and kind of how did we arrive to that, as well as the kayak production recommendation. And then lastly, based on interviewing people, we agreed that the target market would be people at ages from 21 to 40, meaning, those are people who have income, who are shopping, but they don't have as much income that they don't care about the price they're paying. And it's also not people younger than 21 who are probably, may still be kind of helped by their parents, and they might not really value the discount as much as frugal people do.
Or they have school debt or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're also assuming maybe they're more impulse purchasers. They're more influenced by maybe peer pressure, like there's this trendy product so they want it now, versus, generalizing, older people tend to, maybe think things through a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, as a final conclusion and revision to the product is to separate the website into two different websites. So one that would cater only to apparel and accessories, and the other one that would cater only to electronics.
Yeah, we're going to be, if we do go through this, we're going to be having the algorithm already, so having two either separate tabs or websites shouldn't be too much trouble on the back end, and it'll be better for the consumer. And that's it.
Quick question, did you guys mention how many people you actually put this in front of to get this data?
We sent out a survey, we got about 50 responses. We talked in person to people around, I want to say
7 or 8.
Something like that, 6 to 8.
We actually did have a short discussion about cosmetics. It's one of those things like, I want to look good now. I can't wait 3 weeks from now to buy.
And
so it was not an ideal audience.
Yeah. Questions?
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
I haven't used Kayak, but I've been to this site. So Kayak is all limited to kind of travel related stuff, right?
Yeah.
Flights, yeah.
Flights, okay. So it strikes me, since you made the comparison to Kayak a few times, it strikes me that flights have two very distinct differences from clothing or apparel and technology that I think are salient to this, which is one, inventory is limited, and her time horizons are generally known. Sure, there are some people who are just looking for a trip anytime in the next year, but in general, they're sort of looking for a trip around Christmas time or a trip in summer holidays, whatever. The nature of e-commerce is that, especially in these two categories, is that so much of the revenue comes in a 6 to 8 week period of the year.
Right.
I'm just curious so all this kind of creates a soup in my head to think how do you end up not saying that you should just buy it December 24th or whatever the right date is, just November 29th or whatever. I'm a little bit confused by that. Confused by the comparison and the mechanics of the market.
I would think for TVs around Super Bowl time, those kind of products start going on sale, and there's just certain trends for different, and new technology. Maybe there's the depreciation curve that kind of happens with when it first comes out. It costs a lot, but so there's probably different algorithms for different categories of things, but there are you were talking about a holiday season, I guess 6 to 8 weeks or whatever.
Yeah.
I guess everything applies to that. But,
actually, so we did talk to a few people who work in retail. So a person who worked in Target, a person who worked in Bloomingdale's. And they did say that products typically go on sale on average 3 times a year. And it's relatively, it's not difficult to approximate when each store would have a sale. It also depends on the product category. So for example, if we're talking about retail apparel, they go on sale after the fall season, spring season, summer season. So you can kind of approximate by store when the sale would be. So that is our value add, and we could say whether there will be a sale within the next 45 days. And similar to electronics, so they go on sale around holiday time. So that's Black Friday or 4th of July.
So you're delimiting it to 45 days.
Yes.
I think I missed that part.
Yes.
Sorry.
So
Okay.
so Kayak limits it to
Actually,
7
I don't think
days,
we
but
said
for products it's 45 days.
Okay, so it's the best time in the next 45 days to make this
Yes.
purchase. Okay.
So here's the other in comparison with kayak, and kind of going a little bit down the same train of logic. Flights have this. They have a product ID. They have U.S. Air Flight 1729, and you can literally get every flight in the world by supplying that ID. So it's very easy to identify, and you can essentially track it like a stock ticker, and then you can develop a model that says, how's it going to fluctuate? The only thing that I can think that you could probably do this with, in kind of the more generalized world of products, is the URL that product is listed at. So like if you said, you know, this particular page on Amazon, this has a product that I care about, but I think it would be incredibly hard to say this page on Amazon is the same as this page on eBay is the same as this page on Target, and at least to do it with 100% confidence.
Yes, that was my other question. Is where do you get the data, particularly on the apparel side?
So so there are SKU IDs, there's ISIN IDs, so there are IDs where you can identify a product. It is maybe a little bit more store specific, but it is similar to as you search in Google Shopping or Amazon Shopping, you shop by product, by identifying products. So we might not pick it up from every single store out there, but it essentially would be picked up based on, well, one is API data that we can get from stores that provide, like Amazon and Best Buy and a few others. And then there's also web scraping, which is, I guess it would be kind of challenging to get there, but that is, it would be using the web scraping.
Do you anticipate making the purchase automatically, or do you anticipate notifying the user?
Either. That's a setting choice that they can decide.
I mean, it's a whole nother bag of tricks, I guess.
Yeah.
But setting up like a pool of money, things like that, sort of like PayPal is to eBay. But yeah, they could either buy it now. They could say when it gets to this price, buy it on my behalf. What's another scenario?
Yeah, it's either track. We will notify you via email once it hits that price, or we will buy it for you because you have already entered your customer information, your credit card information. Then it'll purchase it for you as soon as it hits that price. So that's similar to stock limit orders.
Right, or we'll let you know when it's getting close to that price because maybe you want it now, or maybe you think it's going to sell out, or something like that.
And there will be an expiration window, so you can enter how many days you're willing to wait. So 30 days, 6 months, depending.
You're describing a product that is, if such a product were to be built, it would be incredibly valuable. That's obvious. Like, this is a good thing, but in the spirit of figuring out how to get there, it's probably important to think about what's the smallest logical thing that you could do first, and that's where I have a hard time imagining like a truly small version of it. That's why I was thinking about URLs. I could imagine
down to like
a
the product
page.
ID. Right.
Yeah.
Well, if you're talking about, I guess, MVP or like minimum viable product, then it would be more of a shell website where a customer enters the product they're searching for and the price that they want to search for, and we would be the ones doing scraping and every day logging in, for example, on Google Shopping and checking has the price gone down across different websites. And if it has, then we would purchase the product on behalf of a customer, send it to them, and then bill them for it.
Like you as people?
Yeah, like
human
manually.
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the simple version to test.
I was just gonna say, I on Hotwire has that watch trip functionality or something like that. But it's actually not, if I remember correctly, it doesn't actually sort of think about all possible permutations of flights and connections and time of day and all of that. It's actually a pretty specific itinerary that it's watching for, and I think that simplifies the problem. And I would second what Tristan's saying around, I think you'd have certainly less operational expenses watching, but also potentially better match to customer expectations particularly on the apparel side. If you sort of said, here's this product on J.Crew, i.e. the URL, just watch that page. Just make it so I don't have to go to this page every day. And I would pay for that service because there's lots of products that I would do that for. And I think on the apparel side, it's very unlikely that the J.Crew shirt is going to be sold on that many other websites. It's true for Nike, yes, but then, actually a lot of those companies don't sell the same product with the same name on multiple sites. They rename it, or they offer
Right.
slightly different colors, or they,
Yes,
you know.
Walmart will change like one feature
Right,
and give
exactly.
it a model
And
number.
the same thing also happens on the tech side. TVs will have a model AX, which is only for one
Right.
particular manufacturer.
There's a lot
You
of things
may-
to figure out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's
so this,
actually a startup, it's called Huckster from
Okay.
New York. They, basically, you have to install a plugin, and then you actually tag different products that you're interested in. Once it goes on sale, they notify you.
Mhm.
So, I mean, that's a similar concept. They actually went out of business. 'Cause they couldn't raise funding. That's the, story, but we're investigating that.
By the way, the one thing you mentioned with the single URL and just watch that URL, I think Slick Deals they just came out with a tool that does exactly that.
Yeah.
So.
yeah, and actually, I mean, in terms of the stores, you bring up a really good point, but we're thinking of doing that through the filter capability, so you can filter which stores that you are interested in searching through, which ones you aren't. So you would just uncheck everything and just select jQuery.
I think it's a big problem.
Oh yeah. But if it was easy, everybody'd be doing it.
That's true.
You mentioned something interesting though about just the complexity of the database to kind of map all these things together, right?
Yeah.
You know, maybe that really is nirvana. Maybe that is the ultimate product here to so you do the human thing just to kind of get in the game, but in the background, you've got a lot of smart people feeding them, raw meat in the room with some tech to figure out how to create that. I mean, my background was originally in telecommunications, right? And everything there was about industry standards, right? About interoperability, right? So if you could ever get a standard out into the industry, like, any product has this ID, that could be massive, right? Because then you have your problem solved, right? And if you have the patent water, everybody eventually gets thirsty, right? So
I 100% support that, but being in the business that we are, and the number of customers that we work with that deal with this exact problem of identification, SKUs were supposed to be that, ISBNs, all those things were supposed to be that, and at least once to twice a week we deal with how should we redo all of our SKUs. And the other thing is that the catalog of things that you're talking about is constantly changing.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be one thing if it's a book. A book is a book is a book,
Right.
or at least a particular print or version of it. Today's blue shirt is next year's green shirt or whatever. I think those are the challenges.
what about also in apparel? QVC has a staggering return rate, right? I mean, it's like 20% or something. It's some ungodly number, right? So how do you deal with those kinds of things, right? That would seem to be a real complex issue too.
Well, I don't think we got that far.
Okay, no, I'm just saying. It's
We
just,
didn't get on the return side of things. We're just trying to figure out the buy side of things.
Yeah, I mean, I think
But that's a
we're
good
trying to
question.
get the aggregation feature as good as Google. What I think is gonna be challenging is those recommendations, the kayak, like we're not trying to estimate it for you by product. It's more just like product category, like general. But is that enough value to the consumer is my question.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you.
I just had a question since we're experts there. Maybe.
Yeah.
Have you thought about consumers? I think as a seller, I'd be interested to know how much more could I sell if I lowered my price to X. Would it be possible to capture the bid from consumers to them? The seller would be able to know if you lowered your TV by $500, you could sell 10,000 of them because there's all those guys queued up for
I mean,
that kind of a sell.
shouldn't the retailers know that? That's
No, they don't.
They don't.
No, yeah, and I kind of thought that in the back of my head that you would be capturing all that data. You'd be able to resell that to the
That to
retailer.
me is a very interesting
Yeah.
play.
A new product, yeah, they don't know. I do think for apparel, that's how they determine their sale price, based on historical trends, how much to discount they
This
can
would be
expect.
actual bidding, for these type of products. I would buy it if it's
Okay.
20% off. Then
You're saying eBay on sale.
that's
To
right.
capture this
That's right.
information.
I think there's a lot of communication that would be a lot of overhead to communicate back and forth with the store. So if the certain product has gone on sale, that means first of all, a number of people have to be tracking it. So that's a big challenge. You have to hype up your user rate. And then second of all, you have to communicate to each store then, whether it's a phone call or whatever it is, communicate to each store to see if they would be willing to decrease the price. So there's a lot of manual.
But there's a completely different technology that's the same idea that you could think about, just to throw more ideas out there, which is that you have some kind of widget that goes onto the product pages of all of these websites, and that's basically this watch how much would I pay, that piece of functionality, and that it's feeding back into your central server, which deals with your how do I get in front of a ton of users question, which is a very valid question. But it takes it out of, you basically, I mean, it flips this whole thing to just being a data aggregation and
To give back.
yeah.
Because that's valuable.
Yeah, like the same way that I think like wish list features have been sold, and you know all these kinds of things have been like little widgets that e-commerce shops buy, so they don't have to build out certain pieces of technology.
Any kind of human behavior aspect that you can collect, you know,
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
retailers,
Yeah,
they want to know.
want to know what price sensitivity
Right.
really is.
It's kind of a comment. It does make sense that it's totally impossible to match like product numbers because all these companies are changing, and I don't think there's going to be a standardized way because these companies are always competing and they want to change the numbers so you can't do exactly this.
That's right. Yeah.
But it costs money to photograph this stuff, and there's been a lot of like picture scraping that's been going on the web. So you could implement that in your back end to, you know, add on to your other avenues of figuring out what's what, because a lot of the pictures will probably be the same of different products. Just thoughts.
Right.
Great. Thanks. Any more questions?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so Found Local is our idea. A curated furniture marketplace for people who prefer to shop locally and from smaller shops rather than big shops, and care more about the stories behind the pieces rather than the labels and the brands. It simplifies the hunt for high quality vintage and handcrafted furniture sold by local pickers and makers. Okay. All right, so our core assumptions are if it was easier to find this kind of furniture, more people would be buying from small local vendors. It's just very, very time consuming and difficult to find that stuff. So you decide you want a coffee table, it's too much of a pain in the ass to you know, go around and see what people have. And a lot of these vendors are not great at marketing now, so you don't even know they exist until, I don't know, it's just very hard to find them. So the other assumption and what we focused on was the vendor side. So I figured the riskiest assumption is that vendors are willing to even be involved in something like this, because without the furniture and without their involvement, it couldn't really exist. So the main problem, just to reiterate, is that vendors and buyers want to find each other, but the tools in place now aren't making that easy. So the product is a map-based curated online marketplace, and the sales strategy was to go out to about a dozen vendors, and these would be the ones who are already doing some sort of marketing, who are sort of very desirable ones in terms of the style they have. They're young, they want to grow, because there are a lot of vintage shops out there, or antique stores more, that don't really care about growing. They're just like hanging out, selling what they have. So the pitch was focused on the curation, and that's just based on some interviews we've done before. So the idea is that like this isn't going to be everyone. This isn't going to be vendors who are selling out of their garages. This is stores. These are people who are established. It's good stuff. The other part of the pitch was that like we will help you with your marketing, and we already had learned that these people are very busy. So, and this is one of the big challenges with this whole exercise and trying to sell to them, is that they have stores that are open, and when their stores aren't open, they're out finding stuff. They also, many of them have families, so they are just like insanely busy. It's a 7 days a week thing. So also I know so the idea of targeting their ideal demographic, a lot of them would love to get in front of like people who have just purchased homes, or younger people who they think if they buy one thing they'll come back, and they're not like done with their homes. They want to keep buying things for it. So that was another part of the strategy. And we just had a landing page really when we went to them. Okay. So next one. So one of the challenges was that the timing was really tough. I should have gone out earlier last week, like Thursday, because once the weekend hits, they are shop owners, so they are really busy, and you really cannot go in and start pitching to them while they have customers in the store. And then Mondays, they're either out driving around, or it's their one day off. So I learned a little bit there, a little bit more about sort of the strategy around how to pitch to them. Like, I think email really, I got a lot of text back saying just email me the information and then I'll call you tomorrow or whatever. So I know this isn't like the greatest piece of data, but I felt good about the fact that at least 90% of them wanted to learn more. They didn't just completely blow me off. And then a couple of them, so this is also like, they did not give me money because I do not have it set up to take their money, but they said that they would buy it for $29.95 a month plus a 10% cut of each sale. And part of that was to figure out what their feelings were around percentage of sale versus subscription, which is some information I got, though not completely clear because it seems to vary. Some of them are much more comfortable with a subscription for certain reasons and others with the cut of the sale. So when I asked, all of the ones who said, like, I really like this idea, but I don't know that I would, I'd have to wait, I'm not sure, whatever. One of them says it's not in my budget, and then I said, I just want to make sure you understand, I didn't say $2,995. I said $29.95. So then she was like, well, I can't afford it. The thing is, I don't know if I want to make sure it's us. Like, I want to make sure it's, like, cool and fits with the advertising and marketing like we do for our store. And the exclusivity, a lot of them said, well, I want to know who else is involved, and I want to make sure that, like, a lot of them went off into stories about, people that they know who sell similar things for less out of their homes, and they wanted to make sure that this would be shops only. How easy it is to use. Again, time was a huge deal. Like, this, they are savvy in terms of they're using technology, but it still just needs to be like, click, upload, done, because, otherwise I don't think you could even get them to just get moving on it. A few people asked, like, okay, so if I pay $29.95 for a subscription, how do I know that money will be going toward marketing me and not just the other vendors on the site? Because I don't really want to pay you to market my competitors and not me. So based on all of this, the main thing was to, number one, update the branding a little bit to go back to them, because I think it did look like it wasn't fitting some of the styles. Like, you've got some sort of main things going on. Like, there are the mid-century people, there are the people who have old farm stuff, like rustic stuff. And I think the way that I had the landing page, it was way too geared toward those, like, farm, the people selling that kind of thing. So if you go to the next one. So we stuck with the same product. The sales strategy is where I could use input, and I'm still working on it. So updated the style on the landing page to appeal to more. Put together an example vendor profile and a vendor page so they could see what an actual person, and one of them said use me, use a couple of my products. So I set up a fake thing so I could, real thing, to show them what they would look like on the site. And then I thought I needed to, when I go back in, my pitch maybe wasn't excellent. So I think I need to go back in and talk more about the details of the marketing strategy. So if you sign on, here are the things that we're planning to do over the next several months. So if you believe in us, this is what you'll get back. The percent, yeah, so that same, around that whole, like, maybe some kind of policy or terms or some way to tell them you will, like, I'm not going to take your money and then market your competitor only. A lot of them had really bad stories about Yelp. I guess Yelp has people going into local businesses and saying, sort of like being a little threatening, like, you might get bad reviews if you need to pay for a premium service, and we'll remove bad reviews from your competitors if they pay and you don't, that kind of thing. So they're very sensitive about sort of what are your policies and what if I sign up and then all of a sudden everything changes, that sort of deal. Also, there was a lot of, like, you need to prove this. I can't pay for it until you can prove to me I'll get sales from it. So I feel like I need to go back and make it look like it's even more real. And then make it clear, make the process clear so we know exactly how the sale came from us. So if they didn't just buy it on the site, but instead they went to the store and to look at it and bought it from there, need to sort of figure out the details there. And then I just showed, the change of the landing page broken into two pieces. So if you go to the next one, it's just to show sort of, this is like it cut in half and moved over. But what we did is we have the top of welcome. I updated the logo. I'm not a designer, but I did it so that it's a little bit, I don't know, a more mixed sort of style than the one I had before. I added a testimonial from a vendor who's very well thought of. She's always at the good flea markets around here. She always has more traffic than anyone else. So I thought that would be good. And then for the people who are asking about my style, like, well, what will this site be like? What will the other vendors be doing? Or what kind of stuff will you have? I created Pinterest boards, and then to show them that it's like eclectic, that they will fit in, and that it would be a good way to market themselves. And then the vendor profile, which doesn't look great. And another challenge was I went into like a black hole of trying to make the vendor profile look good when I should have probably been contacting more vendors, but it was like, oh my gosh, this many hours went by and I'm still trying to figure out why that image is so huge. So that's where we are.
There's another page too.
Oh, yeah, that's showing the really large images that you might have actually done a little work on. So so that's also sliced in half. So it basically, it has the location, you view it on a map. So none of the actual good stuff is happening where like I can type in coffee table, I'm willing to travel 2 hours, or coffee table within 30 miles. But when I show it to them, the idea will be, this is how it will work, and here you go, here's your profile. And there's the giant image that's haunting me.
So it seems like you've been using Yelp to kind of think about this?
I hadn't until everyone kept, like, just in the last week, all of a sudden started talking about it. And I was like, Yelp. Because, the obvious ones are Etsy, Cherish, One Kings Lane. Those I consider the competitors. But then I think it was like they had a really bad taste in their mouths from somebody trying to sell them the idea that they could give them more traffic.
So the typical way that something like, I don't use One King's Lane, but the way that Etsy would work is that you're not selling marketing, you're not selling traffic, it's a storefront. And it's a place for people that don't have storefronts to sell stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that your key insight was that if you only have one of these things, you have to make it super easy to enter that online, or else people aren't going to do it. So just the whole solution seems to be minimizing sales traction. Like how do you get something online and make it as easy as possible to purchase it? You didn't say anything about mobile.
I know, because I'm thinking too much in what I am able to do. And I know that they use their mobile devices to post to Facebook. So I do know, we talked about this like when we sat down today, that it has to work so that they can take it from their iPad or their iPhones and upload it straight to the site, for sure.
I'm a little confused, and I guess building upon Tristan's question, like, are you essentially an online agency, or are these people, like, are they only selling through you, or might they also sell their products to?
They might sell their products other places, but we're the only one that they have so far that actually drives traffic into their store and is like local delivery or walk-in only. So we're not dealing with shipping. A lot of them don't belong to any of the other things because they don't want to deal with shipping large pieces of furniture. So the idea is that this is getting people to shop locally, and they're saying, if I can see the pieces and I see that it's good stuff, I'll drive the 20 minutes to go look at the store. Yeah, my pitch is not good.
Also
That's
for
why you're in the boot camp.
mobile, I guess, good to see Android, not so much learn, but like phone gap, quick, snap a picture, they log in and then automatically uploads it to the site would be something we could also do too.
Yeah.
Because then it's just like, right there, you censor the name, snap the pictures, and it's already done.
Yeah.
I am having, this may not be, I know it's not product strategy, I'm having trouble with the name. I'll try to say this very succinctly in case it's completely off base. I just feel like the term local tends to mean more often than not produce and meat and cheese and, well, things you eat primarily. And I feel like there's gonna be some issue at the end of the day with like online marketing with that. It's just
I think that, I mean, we're kind of hoping to capture some of that ethos.
Yeah.
You know, the idea of, you know, with the whole local food movement, you're trying to support your local economy where you are. This is a very similar thing. They may not be growing the food or, you know, breeding the food, and, you know, but they are, in a lot of cases, you know, finding these things locally. They may be reclaiming things they found locally, and so it's part of, and these are also, you know, people who are in your community. The idea is that, you know, you won't have to travel more than 2 hours. So you're talking about, using Philadelphia as an example, you're talking about, you know, going out to no further than Lancaster and back. So these are, you know, I think we're hoping to capture some of that feeling of our customers focus on, you know, sustainability is one of their values, and so that's why I think the local kind of, we're hoping that would you know, put them in that same frame of mind as when they're shopping.
So you want to capitalize on that, essentially.
Yeah, it makes sense, because sort of the reason for this is because people will go do a CSA, and buy their food at a local market, but then they'll go to Pottery Barn for their furniture. So the idea is, like, you're doing this in other aspects. Why do you go to Target and Pottery Barn then?
Do you do that? I do that.
Yeah, so
because it's easy.
So I'll send you the information. No. I know. I mean, that's the thing. And this stuff exists, and it's everywhere. And you can get similar table, like Pottery. They just like base their furniture off of old styles. You can get good quality, well built stuff, like here, you know, in Philadelphia or in the area. But that could be an issue if people aren't thinking that way. Maybe they won't connect with it. The vendors are part of Shop Local marketing campaigns, though.
Right. So I think, have you been focused in this process primarily on, can you get vendors? There's two sides to this equation. There's the consumer side, or the purchaser side, and the vendor side. It seems like both in the work that you've been doing, but also in the design of the pages that we've seen so far. I wasn't sure if that was supposed to be the home page or not, but it seems all vendor focused. And this story that you're telling around the consumers, to your point, like, are they really going to get sales, and those questions? I'd love to see you kind of develop some of the consumer side of this before you go too far with this.
Yeah.
And specifically, this is a completely different thing, but your pricing, because of the questions that you're saying the vendors are asking you, your pricing, I think Yelp's online advertising has like at least an annual, or at least 6-month commitment, something like that. A lot of advertising channels for that kind of thing will have some kind of commitment. It's going to be very hard for you to get them a sale in 1 month. It may take 3 months, it might take 4 months, but by the time you kind of figure out what's the right mix of, you know, all of that, they're going to need help. They're not going to write great content. They're going to write shitty content, and you're going to have to write it for them. You're going to have to find out what search engine words work well for their content, you know, all of that stuff. So I would think about the pricing and value combination with some sort of expectation setting piece to it.
Yeah.
So I love this idea. That I really think that it's a thing that will happen, whether or not you guys do it. I think somebody's going to do something like this, because I think it's a real problem, and I think that the real key is going to be about creating a very large marketplace, and I think that doing that, I think that charging a flat fee to get into a marketplace is not what's going to do that. I think that if, you know, people aren't going to want to spend their own time to get their listings in there, even if you have the best mobile app in the world, and yet they will take the sales from it if they get sales from it. So the first thing that you do, Lean, is you show up in their stores and you say, hey, I'll photograph everything, I'll just enter it.
Yeah.
There's no reason not to do that. And if you're able to get, especially if you can do the Pinterest integration right, and you get people pinning the photos that people took in your app and grow via that, I agree. It's going to be so hard to do any type of SEM, because the keywords going to be terrible.
Pottery Barn owns them.
Yeah, right. Pottery Barn owns all of it.
Yeah.
I have a question. So, as far as customer acquisition on the consumer side, we kind of were thinking that we would get the vendors on board, post to Pinterest and start to drive traffic to our website through the pictures that we pinned on Pinterest. Do you feel like that's, I mean, the idea was creating a brand on Pinterest and through other channels that are similar, and then because customers connect with our brand, they would, you know, come to our site to look for the pieces that we posted. But is that, I'm just wondering your opinion on that idea and strategy.
Ask it another way. So you just, whether they should
She's wondering if it's possible to get traction through Pinterest.
Yeah, and
if,
it's creating our own
yes.
brand,
Yeah.
and having found local be in and of itself a brand, an effective way of.
Yeah, I think that you discover the one chest that looks cool via Pinterest that gets you to your website or to your iPad app or whatever, and then you realize, holy crap, there's a lot of cool trunks, and like people that are interested in this stuff are immediately interested in finding the one that perfectly expresses their identity. And so you never buy the first one. You search 200 miles of trunks and you find the perfect one. So that's where you guys help out, which is why the number of listings is so important.
Yeah, yeah. So no subscription.
I think that's just going to be hard.
And it's weird, you know, it's so easy to listen to some vendors. Like when I go in and talk to them and they say, I couldn't do per item, then I'm giving you a cut of my end, then it would drive the prices up anyway. I would do a subscription. So I'm like, subscription, okay. They do a subscription. So then I go to the next person and it's like, yeah, sure, I do a subscription and a percentage. And then I go to someone else and it's like, I would not ever do a subscription. I would only do a percentage because what am I even paying you for? So it's weird. It's hard. It's a challenge to figure out who do I listen. I mean, I had to test it, right? You figure out like what if I
talk to 1,000 people, you get 1,000 answers.
Yeah.
It's
definitely
hard. The truth. I think generally for these types of businesses to whom you're selling to, you capture the money at the point of value, and the point of value is the transaction, and you can structure the transactional commission that you're taking. Your problem is you're putting in dollars and you on every one of these vendors, i.e. human resource, capital time, on all of that.
Yeah.
But you can structure it so that, first, it may require some investment up front, on your point. In fact, it definitely will. But you could structure it potentially as the commissions reduce over time, or increase over time. I mean, there's any number of rationales that go into that, but so that once you understand kind of what's the average time that it takes to get that first transaction for a vendor, and like what that average transaction size looks like and all of that, you can monkey with those parameters. But I don't think you'll be successful if you try to capture money anytime before they get actual value.
Yeah. Because they'll just be waiting for the value and then.
And by the way, then you're gonna have a bunch of like hungry people banging at your door saying, "Where's my transaction?" Which is like not the thing you want to be thinking about. You want to be thinking about growing your consumer base, not satisfying a bunch of people who are looking for transactions and saying, "I paid 20. Oh, I want a refund. I didn't get a transaction this month."
Oh God, yeah.
You don't want to be in that business.
Yeah.
One other question in the back.
Yeah, I have from a consumer side, I would want to know that once something is sold, because these are all one-offs, or mostly one-offs, I imagine. Once it's sold, it's not going to still be advertised to me, and I'm not going to drive 200 miles to go find something that's gone.
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't know how you take care of that, but that's something I would worry about.
Yeah, and it's particularly difficult if you see this and then you think Saturday, you don't buy it right away, and you say Saturday I'm gonna go check that out, and then it does need to be, there needs to be some, the vendors need to see if it's a busy Saturday and you bought this online at 9 a.m. somebody comes in at 9:10 and wants to buy it, like they need that immediate. Like they need to change their behaviors a little bit to make sure it wasn't already.
I'm more worried about if you don't buy it online. If you say, oh, well, it's in the store, I'm going to go make sure I like it. And then you may or may not buy it. If you do buy it, it better disappear from online right away, because otherwise someone else is going to do the same thing.
Yeah.
And they're going to go to look at it, and they're going to get there, and it's going to have disappeared an hour before.
If you go to the store on, let's say you go to this, like you see on the site on Friday, and you go to the store on Saturday, you go on the website again to see if it's still there, right?
Right, but who takes it off the website?
But I mean, you didn't
Well,
buy
if it's
it Friday,
purchased
right?
on the website, it's sold. But
If
if
it's
you
purchased
don't
in the
purchase it,
store.
it's up for anyone else who gets there before
Right,
you.
but if I go and I purchase it in the store,
yeah,
there's no real incentive for the vendors to take it off.
Yeah.
It would be like a vendor type CMS. We would have to, like, if they could update their products, using like building a tool for the vendor side, and
Yeah.
then there's a
But are
consumer
they
side.
going? What's the incentive for them to make sure it's prompt?
I mean, a
Push
lot
off
of,
customers.
some of them have complained, one of the things I was thinking is that some of them have complained about inventory management. So they go out and they buy a ton of stuff on Monday and Tuesday. And then they are supposed to be very good with their accounting, they're supposed to know exactly what they paid and then exactly what they sold it for. So part of me was feeling like maybe that should be part of this, like, so that they get in the habit of every single thing they bring in, this is, inventory management as well as,
That's a good
but that's a
incentive.
Kurt,
bigger,
could we ask
for
one
sure.
more question, or a couple more?
I think we've got two quick ones.
Yeah.
This is real quick. A lot of people, if I'm sorry, I didn't get your name in the front, but you said, this is very personal. Somebody's going to look through 1,000 trunks to find the right one, and if they do, that person is going to go and look at it before they buy it online, and if they do that, then they're probably going to buy it in the store. So how are you
Yeah, so
going to
how
make
do
money
you-
there?
So a couple of the vendors, I've talked about that with them, and they had suggested some, coupon thing, but I don't know. The answer is I don't know yet. I just feel that this can be done. There's so many details I know that need to be figured out, but I think it should happen. I don't, and maybe this is why it hasn't happened, but there's gotta
There are
be.
other sites that are similar that, you do have to buy it on the site. Cherish, for instance, you can't go to that person's house
Right.
and
Check
say,
it out.
I want to check out your sofa. You have to buy
Yeah.
it.
And just a side note, I don't think if someone does that, there's going to be nothing we can do. I mean, I bought products on eBay, and if I found that we were in Jersey, I just called them up and saying, hey, I can meet you at this location, and I just do that.
But eBay has ads, so they make money on the side too.
Do they have
So it's a
ads?
question on profit, where's
Yeah.
your revenue coming from?
Wait,
Yeah, that's the other sort of, I was like, well, maybe if at least there's a subscription cost, I know they're paying for the marketing that they're getting.
It's a tough question.
the only
Yeah.
thing we can say is create a sense of urgency on the site, saying so many people have looked at this product this week, better
Yeah.
pull the trigger.
Plus, the distance could be a factor also. If you're talking about driving out to Lancaster and it may be gone, there's an incentive to, buy it before it disappears because any number of people might be coming that Saturday to check it out.
Okay,
If I can
Jim,
give you,
last question.
oh, go ahead, sorry.
No, it's okay. I think that we hit on this back office sort of problem that they have, right? About taking care of their inventory. Inventory management's like a problem for everybody on earth, right?
Yeah.
So we know they have one. And then they also have, it sounds like, other kinds of issues. Because if they can't tell whether or not something's been sold, that's an issue. But it would seem that the back office would somehow weave into this. And maybe then that's how you get the monthly recurring fee. You know what I mean? Like you're giving them some sort of ERP light for local vendors, for a monthly fee. And then you're capitalizing on that for sure, whether it's bought in the store or not, right? And it gets you hooked. It makes you different somehow than the other sites that you were talking about, and it gives you an identity. Like you're the problem solver for that space.
I think that's right on the money. I've talked to a lot of shoppers on Etsy, and they have inventory issues. I guess Etsy doesn't have a lot of apps that they could use. I'm not a seller at Etsy, so I don't know, but they all say inventory sucks. That's the worst part of their job. They just want to be focused on creating the product and selling it.
So maybe finding a way to solve. I know nothing about this, by the way, which I was telling you earlier. But if you can solve somebody's inventory problem, it's a big problem in their life, right? So if you become important to them for that, then they'll give you anything else if you can solve that.
Yeah.
I right before you said that, what I was gonna say is I do feel like you're trying to solve, I sense in you that you're trying to solve a lot of different problems at once, and that every time you start to attack one problem, you're jumping to the next problem, you're identifying more problems, which that does happen in this world, but I feel like you might be losing a little bit of control of what's the one problem that you're trying to solve for whom. And this type of thing, it's not a fleeting market space. I mean, furniture and the desire for local stuff, that's gonna grow. It seems to me you either need to focus on the consumer side, so you might define, I'm just making this up, you might define that their problem is there is just no directory of local vendors. I don't know if that's true or not true, but I'm just saying, that's one piece of the puzzle. Or you might say the inventory part is a specific piece of the puzzle. And if you knock that out of the park, it gives you room and trust and whatever to grow into the next piece. It may not realize your full vision right away, but it seems to me that what you're trying to do here is more of like a roadmap type of product rather than you go out the door trying to sort of make the connection and get products bought all on day one. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't know if the right place to start is inventory management, because then you really get the vendors in and you get control of the product supply, so that now you can have real expectations with your customers.
Yeah.
And you could design features like, let me put a deposit on that product. I'm going to go see. I mean, any number of ideas come up. Or is the right place to start with getting consumers, identifying them, and proving to the vendors that there's people willing to buy? I don't know. I haven't thought about that part yet. But I have a sneaking suspicion you're trying to attack too many problems all at once.
I mean, it feels like I focus on one main problem, which is that people are buying from these big stores because they don't realize that these stores are out here. But then
That's
there's so
not a
much
problem to either one of those two people. The way that you frame
it is for the vendors.
Okay, but then frame it as the vendor's problem. Don't frame it as like the way that you're framing it. It's almost like it's almost like a global warming type of problem. It's like the meta problem. It's like people should be doing this, but they're not doing this. No, say this particular user type really wants this particular problem of theirs to be solved. And I think if you frame it like that, the problem you're trying to solve will be much clearer, and your solution should be much clearer.
All right, guys, we're gonna move on to the next group.
Cool. All right. Hey guys, my name is Mahesh Narayanan. I'm the CEO of Pslubc, which is actually a cancer therapeutics company working on therapies for breast cancer and prostate cancer. And one of the things we came across during our research is that we got petabytes of data, which is 1 million gigabytes of data every year from all our patient population. And I figured we can do something with this data, right? So rather than me just throwing it away, and which is pretty much what most biotech and pharma companies do, kind of save it, and then after a few years they kind of just delete the data. I figured we could do something with it, so we actually created a digital health team, and I pretty much said, figure out what we can do with this. So the first product they came out with is called CanScope. And this product's been in development for about 4 to 5 months now. So I was a little ahead of the curve when we started, but I guess you guys caught up to me now. So we actually been running something similar. We're actually on third iteration, but kind of for our past month. So let's go to the next slide. So I'll tell you what CanScope is. We're actually creating a platform that's trying to bridge the information disconnect between cancer patients, researchers, and doctors. Most people associate cancer with just patients and doctors, and most people don't consider how much research that goes on, and researchers don't really consider how many patients there are, how many doctors there are. They kind of just do their own thing. So each one's in a separate world. So I figured let's kind of just combine all three into one space and kind of start conversing and kind of sharing the information that we have from each other and trying to figure out, once a patient's diagnosed, what can they do for the next 5 to 7 years so they can ensure their survival. Okay, next slide. Okay, so again, who are our customers? Obviously, cancer patients, physicians, researchers. And when I say cancer patients, that also includes all their family, so it's not just the patients. And the problem, again, that most of them have is that they're really not aware of any of the expected outcomes of any particular treatment. So when they say, okay, you need to go take chemo, and you have to combine these two, patients like, fine, I'll go take it. That's going to save my life. But what they don't realize, and what most doctors don't realize is that chemo might not be the best for that particular patient, and we can actually determine which type of treatment is best for each type of patient based on just analytics rather than going through diagnostics, which is what a lot of approaches are currently. So out of almost 400,000 patients that we have data acquired for, based on what type of treatment they did, how they got affected, and what were the outcomes, we actually created our own algorithm to figure out, based on who you are, what type of treatment you have, and what kind of age, race, sex, whatever algorithms you want to put in, what treatment is best for you. So what treatment is going to give you the best success rate? And again, I wouldn't say doctors don't know that, but they don't know it to that specificity or that type of number. So we figured, why not give that to the patients and the doctors and the insurance companies, and kind of just get all of them into one space. But again, who has that information? Researchers, and they don't really talk to anyone. Kind of have their own world. So I said, okay, let's bring them on board. So we got the researchers on board, and so again, this platform kind of is trying to get that whole problem solved, where we can actually give that particular individual a particular number and say these are the top 5 treatments for you, and these are the success rates based on your age, your sex, your race, and this is what you should go for. Let's go to the next slide.
2 minutes left.
Yeah. So again, this is actually the second iteration of what we did. The first was actually a pitch deck, and we kind of just sent that out to patients, and that didn't help at all because we didn't get any information because they're like, I don't want to go through 10 slides. So then we figured, okay, let's put this in maybe one slide of a flyer. So we created this flyer and kind of started, so we were at a conference a couple months ago, and we kind of passed this out to a lot of the patients that were there. It was a AACR conference, so a lot of patients were there, a lot of physicians, a lot of researchers. And we sent this out, and we said, okay, this is going to be, it's going to be a web-based and a mobile-based platform. It's going to work in, tablet, phone, any type of desktop. And what we're going to do is we're going to provide an interactive info source. So again, the info source is pretty much the data, and so we're calling it the info source. And a customized search. So again, if anyone goes to Google and types in breast cancer, it doesn't matter if you're a patient, a doctor, or a researcher. All three of you get the same information, and that's kind of useless because researchers want some kind of data that's usually on page 24 or 25. Doctors want information that's on page 10, and most of the patients are fine with whatever's on page 1. But again, so doctors want clinical data. Researchers want other research that's going on, and that information is not produced by Google in the first 10 pages. So we figured, based on the type of user you are, we'll provide you that data. So for doctors, you're primarily going to get clinical trials that are going on. That's probably most relevant to you. For researchers, we'll give you other type of research that's similar to yours. That's what you probably need. And for patients, some type of general information, but not what's in page 1 or page 2. That's too general. And then again, bridging the gap, kind of just bringing all of them together and creating a forum, and said, okay, now that you have the information, start talking and figure out what the best course of action is for that particular individual. So this kind of helped, but most of them were trying to figure out how this all worked because these pictures weren't that helpful. So we actually created a landing page, kind of saying, okay, this is what it's going to look like. So we actually created designs for each of the pages, as well as a demo site where they can actually go and check out how it is. So if you go to the next slide.
And can you wrap it up, because we're out of time?
Sorry?
You're out of 5 minutes, so we're going to keep it to 5 minutes from here.
Oh, okay, sure. So again, some of the results that we found, kind of went through all of this. Why would anyone pay for it? It's faster way to get to physicians, and they couldn't really get that information anywhere else. And it's also simple design. But why they wouldn't pay for it is that the doctor. Most people won't come to the site unless the doctor prescribes it, and that's how most patients work. They might find this information anywhere else. They just have to find go search a little more. And researchers will only come there if there's information there that most other researchers don't have. And doctors will not use this at all unless they get compensated. So these are pretty big problems we had to solve. So this is for the next slide. So what we came up with, again, there are 2 landing pages, but it's fine. Let's just keep it here. So what we kind of reiterated and came up with is that patients just want to see who the best physicians are, best treatment is, and best clinical trials are. That if the treatment doesn't work, where can they go from there? And doctors want to get compensated by insurance companies, so we figured, okay, we had to get the insurance companies in here, try to get them in. And researchers, again, they want to get an easier data retrieval, so that's kind of what we created using that particular search. We already had that idea, but we really didn't know how to go about it. And then so once we talked to a lot of researchers, we figured this out. So this was actually done on 5 researchers, 5 physicians, and 5 patients. Now we're actually doing it on 50 researchers, 50 patients, and 50 doctors. Which is going on right now, but this is what we have information for so far, and so shoot for any questions, or if you want to just click on the landing page or the demo page, and people can
I'll
just
click
look
on
at
it,
it.
but let's go to questions.
Yeah,
just so
any
everyone knows,
questions?
we're going to do 5 and 5 for presentation and questions from here on out, just so we can get through everyone as quick as possible because we're running way over.
Any questions, comments?
How much uptake have you had? I mean, it's just shocking to me that all of this information is hidden from doctors and patients, and you're kind of the first to release it. So I think it sounds great. What's the greatest uptake challenge that you have? Can you not just approach doctors like you've?
Well, again, the problem is doctors they love to have this information, but how do they use it? How do they how can they interact this information to patients? Usually the problem is patients have to go to doctors every single time they need new information. So we actually created a platform where we can say, okay, if you want to communicate, just communicate through private messages, stuff like that. So we actually went to, again, we figured we had to go to insurance companies, so we actually went to AmeriHealth Mercy, which is right in Philadelphia, and again, it's CMS, so people, it's a government, Medicare, Medicaid, and that's usually where most things start, and whatever happens there goes to commercial. So we figured that's a great place to start. So we actually are trying to do a pilot, project there, where we're actually going to give more of a bundle type payment. So for a particular patient, it costs about $65,000 for a breast cancer patient, and about $95,000 for a cervical cancer patient overall. So if insurance companies can tell the doctor, if we can do this in $50,000 and keep the patient away from visits and hospital visits and keep lower our costs, we'll give you $50,000. Whatever you save, that's your profit. If you can't save it and you have to go for it, that is on you. Right. So again, this is more on the ACA of providing a service per value. Right.
So you're talking about capitated payments.
Yes.
I mean, so the biggest issue in the insurance industry right now is just in terms of underwriting, not being able to use a lot of these data points anymore. Right. It's like government mandated healthcare reform.
Right.
So how do you see yourself?
Well, again, this is actually where they're going towards. But bundle payments is actually where they want to go towards. Because that's actually where it creates value rather than them just paying. Because again, it's a power struggle between hospitals. Hospitals are trying to keep the costs low. Doctors want to get paid if they give you as many tests as they can, right? So it's kind of a power struggle between just the healthcare system. So now it's going towards that value, providing value for the service. So bundle payments are actually a really good way to go because they say, okay, $65,000 for that patient. Do everything you can, keep it to within $65,000 because that's all you're going to get paid, right? And the government can also do that because they can actually now use that as an estimate to see, okay, there are this many cancer patients, this many, this is how much the cost is going to go, and they can actually start projecting how much, healthcare will go up and down much better that way than how it is right now, where it's pretty much, on the limbo, and the government kind of just throws up random numbers to CMSs and say, this is how much you can pay for this drug. That doesn't really help, right? So that's kind of where we're going towards. It doesn't matter what drug you're going to choose or what treatment you're going to choose. Make sure the cancer patient survives.
So does survival statistics know? I mean, like if what you want was happening, would more people live and would costs go down, and that's clear?
Right, and actually if you go to, if you just click on the info source page that's on the top, or down here, right? So if you just click anywhere on this page, and then just scroll all the way down, all the way down. So this is what we came up with. Right, so based on a 35-year-old male who has myeloma, and for both sexes, so if he's between, or he was 55 years old, that curve is for the survival rate of a 55-year-old person, and the bottom is for 65-year-old. So they can actually project what the trajectory is and what we can do to increase that outcome. So if they take at 2 years, if they have again, this is myeloma, so but if they have a surgery, right, it can increase the chances maybe by 20%. So that bar is going to go up. Obviously, patients don't want to see this. This is only for researchers. They don't want to see, in 10 years I'm going to die, right? And that's really no good way to project it unless we tell that to doctors and say, okay, you present this to the patient. But for researchers, it's actually a great place. And we have all this data. Again, for 400,000 patients, we have this data. So we actually accumulated our own algorithm to say, this is how it's going to look. And again, the next step is pretty much to say, what can we do to increase these lines going up? So if you click on treatment, you can see how the line's going to go up or go down. Or if you're a smoker and you have lung cancer, you can see how it's going to go down even more. Right? So that's kind of what we're trying to project, is kind of give the power to the patient in terms of information, but kind of have providers and payers kind of push them towards a healthier lifestyle so we can ensure the survival.
So where are you getting the data? I mean, it seems like you're just brokering this information between insurers and providers?
Right, so again, this is data we accumulated we're a therapeutic company, so we work with a lot of patients and doctors. Okay. And we accumulated around 400,000 patients' data, again, under the HIPAA rules.
So you have a platform where you are collecting this data?
Yeah, we have this entire database. We've accumulated databases, again, from the NIH, NCI, Fox Chase, Sloan Kettering, so pretty much wherever you can think of that has a cancer center, we accumulate all this data into one space, and then kind of created algorithms around it. Because again, most therapeutic companies do this, but they don't actually do this, where they'll actually analyze the data and figure out what you can do with it.
All right.
I guess we're running out of time.
All right. Every business that schedules its workers in shifts has a big problem, and that problem's called real life. Bad things happen to good schedules, and you need a way to be able to handle how you deal with the changes when that happens. So Perfecta.com is an open work shift alert. So you can go to the next slide. And Perfecta makes scheduling easier by instantly alerting the whole network of staff employees about an open shift, no matter what the reason is. Everybody's got a reason why they can't make that shift, but Perfecta helps you efficiently communicate that so you can fill that shift with someone else who can take the shift, saving you time, headaches, and money. So on the next slide, the assumptions that form the basis for the business is that the customer is probably the schedulers, the organizations are going to be the one who probably want to pay for this service more than the staffers. They don't have a lot of time. It takes a tremendous amount of effort whenever there is a change in order to find things. The traditional methods that they've been using aren't really that great. And the problem is that the staffing irregulars happen all the time. It's just perpetual, and it happens to every business in every industry. And it's requiring staffers, schedulers, to communicate with their staffers, sometimes go out to external agencies to pay increased fees for someone who can take the shift when they run out of options from their regular staff. So our solution is to provide something that will instantly alert the entire network of people, most likely who are previously known to the organization, because no matter how technical your staffers are, you need to be able to have gone through the process of onboarding someone already if you're going to be putting someone into a last-minute shift replacement process. And so right now, as an MVP, we're looking at something that would complement the existing scheduling systems that are in use, to try to focus it just on that single idea. So next slide.
So this is a great idea, and the reason it is a great idea is because this is a very big pain that we've seen. Ernie's, one of our team members' wife, had this problem because she does scheduling. And so how we were trying to sell it is that we were doing personal selling. And when we were doing personal selling, we found that this is not only, we're trying to first see that how can we limit the market. This is a systemic problem all over. So we found RNs, that registered nurses and hospitals is what we target for now. And so while doing personal selling, we also spoke with people at Walmart, at different other retail places, and we did quite a few surveys, and we contacted about 8 to 10 schedulers who are actually bear the brunt of this, and they have this pain. And we also contacted about 15 to 20 staffers, and this number is a little bit more bloated than 15 to 20 because I also interviewed a bunch of RNs. They were all sitting together, like 6 or 7 of them, and then chiming in and giving their opinions. And they did say that this is a pain, that they have to call people if they have to make some schedule changes. So we did surveys, we did personal selling, we did sample mock-ups. This is an example of a sample mock-up that we had, that we showed different people and said that, if we have the solution, would you buy it? And most of them were, open to it, that, instead of calling their friends and scheduling or finding somebody else who can cover their shift, it'll be an easy way to send a message to their network, and then, get one of their friends to actually, commit to it. And then we did a few iterations of landing page that we'll show, and, the initial landing page was not very well received, and then we, went on to the next landing page. Thank you. So the results and conclusions, in the interest of time, we'll only cover the few highlighted ones. We were actually on the money quite a bit, and probably one of the reasons is that we knew the pain going in, and second is that we did a lot of thought and a lot of discussions about it, that what it should be and what our assumptions are. So schedulers and organizations is most likely revenue source. The people, staffers will not pay. The organizations or the schedulers are willing to pay. So that's a very good thing. Staffing irregularities are systemic. So while talking to people in retail companies like Giants or Walmart, we found that this is a problem everywhere. And there are solutions, but the solutions are not great. So the solutions do help them in scheduling, but it's so cumbersome that outside their network it might not work, or still they have to use phone calls, arcane method of 1993, to actually make reservations or find different other people. So what we'll do is that we'll complement the current solution, and go ahead.
Next slide. Results, conclusions. What we found is people want something that's easy to use, they can start to use immediately, and it solves their frequent source of pain, and that is save them time and the headaches. Through the research, we found that the time spent is anywhere from 18 to 25% on scheduling for these part-time managers. And the objections were the size. Probably wouldn't be a good fit for someone who has 5 employees. If you have 5,000, then it's perfect. Staffers won't pay, and it would also require usually some type of organizational approval to purchase. And the last slide is just our landing page and the iteration. We had a fancy.
There's a different, an
Can
updated
you do another
one
click?
from there.
Oh, there it goes.
And one more.
With a survey, and the next is we're going to put a savings calculator on the page as our next iteration on how much you would save if we saved you 50% of your time.
How come? So we've heard from people today who are going to like scrape the entire internet for product prices, and then this feels incredibly useful. It's almost feels small enough, and maybe I don't understand the whole solution, but it feels small enough that you know, a talented developer could potentially hack this together in a week.
Yeah.
And
Right.
you know, if you're selling to huge companies and you're hoping to make money off of this, is it a big enough solution that they couldn't potentially just build it?
So there are solutions which are not tackling this problem right now. Our key would be, A, we have this problem resolved and we won't be charging them a huge amount. And B, we will have the network of other people that they can buy in. So for example, the RNs, they would be on board. So we are going to go and do a reach out and build our own network. And then they would be able to use our systems. And then our exit strategy would be, somebody wants to buy us, it's good.
We talked during the process of traction channels about whether or not staffers themselves might want to get involved in actually trying to solve their own problems. Because if you can't make a shift right now, the traditional model is the organization says, it's not our problem, you're scheduled for that shift, you find a replacement. So one possible option for traction is that users might get involved in at least building a network of people that are using the service and help us build a larger user base that might make our service more valuable to sell without necessarily helping drive revenue until we get to that base. So that's a question, is whether you go for the growth with the users with the revenues to follow or not.
Do those people, so if I'm an RN with Children's Hospital, and I have a friend who's an RN with some other
Jefferson,
yeah,
that's it.
some other place. Like, even if I could get that person to cover, don't I have to be like approved, screened, whatever by CHOP already?
Yes.
A staffer somehow?
Yes.
So to begin with, that it's from within our network. So within the CHOP itself. So
Within CHOP.
you have 10 friends. So how they do it right now is that they start calling the first best friend and the second best friend, and the fourth best friend knows that I'm on the lowest on the totem pole, so they will not agree to it anyways. But so that's how they start calling. So it'll be your 10 pool of friends, and immediately they'll get the message.
Right, yeah, I mean, if you're talking about a Walmart staffer, you may see a posting on the board in that store where you're working because the manager's frantically doing something, but there's a store that's right across town with other Walmart employees that could come over if they were alerted to it. So when you're within that own private network, you're already onboarded, you're known to that network. It's an easy switch over. When you're not, you either have to come through an expensive agency that has already been vetted and is proving that they're going to provide you with talented resources, or it just doesn't work.
So right now, if they are not able to have an internal person come in, so they go in through external agencies, and then they pay an arm and a leg there. So over a period of time, we can build that that this person has been vetted, and can go through and sign up.
Is there a reason you would only want to ask your network of 10 people that you know? Is there a reason that text message wouldn't go out to anybody who was qualified to work in that pool of
It
labor?
would go to the entire closed network. For instance, if everyone in Jefferson Hospital who were an RN, you could text that entire message to those RNs, or
Sure.
be it a tech, or whatever the position is.
Right, because if you already know them, then this
Right.
doesn't have that much utility. But if there's people that you don't know, like the store from across town, or the entire network of all the Jefferson hospitals or all of CHOP, then it's really useful.
With the filtering tools, so you can narrow down your pool and just get it to you.
Well, maybe the system could even do that for you, right? Like you just send the text and the system decides everyone that should get it, right?
Well, your scheduler could have
Oh.
filtering tools as well.
Okay.
Because some employees may be better than others, or more desirable than others to
Tier
have on
one,
certain
tier two,
shifts.
Maybe you don't, the podiatry nurse to work on the neurologist. The only other comment I'd make is that this landing page, or sort of how you're thinking about this messaging and even the pitch, it's not really clear to me what your solution is. And the more that you've talked about the examples in the words, in your verbal part about, different Walmart stores, of course I don't know the people in the Walmart store across the way.
Right.
That market identification of places with like large networks, but where, there's small numbers of people that know each other, like that really needs to be here. Humanize that problem. You're sort of doing a lot of telling, like it is going to solve problem A, you've not shown how it's going to solve problem B, you've not said whose problem, and like really personalize that part.
Yeah, we do have stick figures diagrams, which we were not able to put in here, but we do have the stick figures. We're trying to get it animated, and I went with Fiverr, which didn't work. So.
That's good feedback.
It's interesting. We do it like McDonald's and stuff.
Yeah.
I'll try to make it pretty short. Thanks for, I guess, your time in sitting for those presentations. My name is Fred. This is the name of the idea. My brigade is the name of the idea. The next slide will.
I think you have the same idea as well.
Wow. I thought this was a better idea, so I went with that instead.
You can change your name for it, right?
Next you're going to tell us your self-furniture
So
locally.
the brigade, the definition we're thinking about in this context is a group of people organized to act together. On the next slide, tells you about the fact that it's an app designed to help you do things efficiently with people you know. And in particular for parents who are living hectic lives, this helps you work together efficiently with people you know and trust for things like rides for your kids, babysitting, walking the dog, etc. So basically the positioning, it's kind of the cross between social networks where you can interact, but it's really just for the sake of having fun. You can deal with services that dispatch random strangers to do things for you. So this is the combination of the two, as well as trying to get organized with things like Wunderlist, and trying to incentivize or encourage people to, I guess, do good. Waze, I think, is a good app where people can get addicted and participate even more. So ultimately, it's an app that provides a simple way to give and receive valuable help, builds productive relationships and friendships, and leads to good karma and less stress. One way, I think one line that has resonated is the building productive relationships or productive friendships. So there's the friendship part on one end with things like Facebook, and there's the active or productive part, which is, so this is trying to combine the two of them. So the next slide shows a kind of a mock-up, a first sketch of this. So you see someone saying, hey, could you pick up my son at school? I'm jammed up in a meeting or something like that. And you could look at that, and obviously when you send the request, you send it to your brigade, so you select the people you trust. You don't send that to, you don't post it on Facebook. If you receive it because you're within that circle, then you can acknowledge it and say, yes, I'll take care of it. So it kind of streamlines the interaction that typically occur between moms and parents. Without, this way you don't have to put people on the spot. It's more of a facilitated through an app. So one of the things I did, so in terms of assumptions, people could argue teenagers could use this app for homework or getting things done like play dates and whatnot. You could argue other people besides parents could use this to get things done together. The assumption is to focus on parents because initially, at least, they're extremely busy and they feel pretty much every day task can be a challenge because a lot of parents run out of time. The second set of assumptions is, should this be focused on individuals or groups like, soccer teams or schools, or could it be potentially for businesses? So right now, the focus of the initial research was on the individuals and groups rather than businesses. Another set of assumptions was around, typically when you reach out for help, you either reach out to friends for, for good karma, or you reach out to people that want to be paid, like sitter, dog walker. So, I was curious to see, would people rather use an app like this for favors or for paid services? And another set of assumption was, would people want to use this for a very specific thing like rides? Or would they want to use it for something more broad, where they can text any request? It could be, I'm out of milk or something, and make it generic that way. So to take a stab at this, I sent out a survey yesterday to about 65 people, asking those questions. Some of them, it's more from an implementation point of view, such as like, what phone do you use? And the last slide, I just looked at the results earlier today. It shows some of the early findings. So far, I just sent it last night, so it was tough to get all of them back. But out of 19, most people that I sent it to are using iPhones, which actually matches some other feedback I've gotten from other folks, where a lot of moms tend to use iPhones, even though I have a lot of dads as well in there. But people said, yes, I would use the app. 5 maybe, 1 no. Friends versus paid services, as you can see, 12 folks said they would rather use it for both. I did ask in terms of, a subscription, would you pay nothing for this, or would you pay some amount of money monthly, for example, and this is what the feedback came back as. I did the NPS stuff with, and from 0 to 10, I would rate this, and 0 to 6 are detractors, and 7 to 8, I think, is passive, and then 9 and 10 is people that are promoters, and this is that came back so far. I think a lot of people said, I can't really be a promoter when I really don't know how this app is going to look. I just look at the sketch, it doesn't tell me much about it, so I wouldn't promote it without knowing more about it. So this is what I've got so far. Any reaction or?
One more slide down.
The last slide is, if you want to take the survey, you can go to mybrigade.com. I put a site up so people could go to that and see a pitch and take the survey.
Are you a parent yourself?
Yeah.
It's funny, we have a group, I live in Fairmount, there's an email list for Fairmount parents, and I see 80% of the requests. I'm shocked at how many people will get people they don't know to watch their kids for them. So I think you've hit on the babysitter part, and then there's a lot of, my kid needs to go to school and I need to go to this direction, and so I think there's 2 things there that parents do need a lot of help with. The part that I think really works about the way that works, so that's like a Yahoo group that emails out to your email and people just respond on the email, is that yes, because there's 100 things I need to be checking every day as a parent, it's nice that my email inbox can just kind of contain everything. So I worry a little bit about an app that now is this extra thing that I have to go to. So I guess I would look for ways for this to, for this to be more integrated into my daily routine rather than have to become yet another thing that I have to check or go to. Because of course, if I'm, there's probably some sort of curve that represents, if I put 1 or 2 things out there and don't get a response, my likelihood to use this thing is going to go down. And if you have enough people that happens to at the right intervals in a particular network, then everybody starts to stop using it, right? So I worry a little bit about adoption and usage, because nothing's worse than asking for a favor and nobody responds. Right? It's a little similar, on the parents list, there'll be people who post things that are either for sale or, God forbid, for free, and then other people don't respond, you don't even want your stuff that's free. So that's my concern around adoption.
Yeah, so one piece of feedback was people definitely wanted the filtering piece. So they were like, I like the instant notification because I could be on my way, but they wanted to be able to filter things out. So I'm in a meeting, I don't want to be pinged because you're going to soccer and you might take my kid, so the filtering was a key function. the sorting as well, like being able to sort, like I'm interested in rides, or I'm driving, so I could pick up folks, so I want to look at rides, or I want to look at, I'm going to, an example, it's kind of silly, I'm going to Costco, who needs some stuff, I could pick it up on the way type of thing. So the filtering and the sorting, the mechanical stuff, I think a lot of people, to your point, were telling me, like, I don't have time to look at my mailbox, and I know people don't have time either, so if I ask for help, it's...
Yeah, but here's my concern about that. So filtering and sorting sound really good to people who are technologists, because they're like just matters of coding up things that, run special queries or ask for data inputs. The challenge with that is people will naturally start to filter or set up their filters and sorts, the consumers, in such a way that they think is primed towards like the results that they're really interested in, which means that they're very often not going to get, I'm trying to describe this, there's gonna be a bunch of people sitting with like unique sets of things they're interested in, both helping out about or asking about, and the connection is very unlikely to happen. I think what actually makes these, what I find, because I for some reason spend too much time thinking about how this particular list works, and it has hundreds upon hundreds of people participating in it, there is a lot of noise. So you're either the person that's like, I'm gonna stay paying attention and just auto delete all the noise, but I know that because there's some gems out there that I would have filtered out, I'm gonna stay paying attention. Or there's the people who respond to every single query that comes up. I think you're probably better off doing a bit more research into these kinds of, they exist already. You're just trying to make something easier that already exists. I worry that you're gonna over specialize the query process and actually end up with nobody helping each other.
Yeah, that's true.
So, one, there's no app in the App Store called Favor, and I think that should be the name for your app. I think it should just be called Favor. You do with that what you want, but I think that the paid part of it is so different than the voluntary part of it that. I mean, if you want to pursue paid, great, but I think that a lot of the stuff that I saw you talking about was much more on the voluntary side, and so I think that you should at least at first focus. And the biggest problem with that list that you would be in a position to solve if you're doing everything via an app is reciprocity. You've got givers and you've got takers, and if you can somehow, either at the group level or at the individual level, kind of balance those two groups of people out so that if you want to ask a favor, you also have to do a favor. That is a significant...
Yeah, I thought about that. One way is to have this karma gamification where you can earn karma, like Reddit, right? So you could see, hey, John has got 100 karma points because he's done 100 favors. So, and on the other hand, you could look at me with 0 karma points, and like, he's definitely not, so I think people could, like in ways, right, people want to earn those points to get the statuses.
But my big pushback on that is I still think assume this whole thing works, I still think you're gonna have a larger group of females than males that use this. That's my guess, if you're talking about the parent market. The last thing a mom wants is more guilt. And points is just going to raise the notion.
Yeah, this is an interesting point because I know we're going over.
Yeah.
Like a lot of dads told me this would allow them to be a mom because
a better person.
I know like my mom is great at the churning and the personal interaction. As a dad, I'm more like, okay, push a button, and people I interact with them the same way I am. So I could see me stepping up my game by saying, I can take care of the babysitter, I can take care of the dog. Well,
but I have to get points for it.
That's nice too.
It's very interesting. Yeah.
All right, cool. Thanks.
So, a lot of what you've heard tonight is with software, web-based companies. We are a hardware software company, and it's focused on wearable technologies. Specifically, we want to create an intuitive, place-based wearable device that engages and enhances your social and physical environment. Next slide. So we want to create a large platform, but we have to create a niche before we do that. So our first niche, our beta product, are urban bike commuters who own smartphones, so they're tech conscious. They'll be able to use our product. The problem, bike commuting, it's a huge thing in urban environments, but it also provides a lot of challenges for the people who do it every day. You're fighting on the roads with a lot of different modes of transportation, especially cars. And the whole idea is to provide a better experience for the bikers and the other modes. Next slide. So to explain a little bit more what Placeband is, it operates on your mobile platform, so there's an application that it's running off of, but you're not interacting with your phone at all. It's all based in the band. And what it does is it uses a sensory-based feedback to navigate you through your environment to your destination. So instead of looking at your phone or a screen on your bike, it gives you sensory feedback to direct you a certain way that'll give you your best experience to get to your destination. And what it does is it works on an open platform with the other users, similar to like a Waze app with traffic, and so all the data is compiled to kind of aggregate all the bikers down the same path. So it kind of creates this interesting network of riders. So based on that, our sales strategy consisted of creating a landing page, which we could market this product for other people to experience and learn more about, to create and develop interest. And we don't have a physical product developed. We find that it's very feasible to develop, but we haven't reached that stage yet. But the whole ideation was that to get traction, we give this to bloggers for them to actually try and experience and use and test, and that they'll be able to push and market it for themselves. Because the whole idea is to create a very intuitive experience through the urban environment without you having to look at physical screen. I guess we go to the next slide. So what we found, I mean, this, like I said, we don't have a physical product, but just from the ideation going through the process is that people really want to experience this before they purchase it, because the product, you're purchasing something, it's a hardware, it's something that you have to pay for. So before you pay, say $80 to $150 for something, they want to experience it in some way. And we initially developed the mobile application to be very simple. We didn't want the focus to be in the mobile app. We wanted it to be in the physical product. But we found that, if you can go to the last slide, that by actually opening up the application to be more of a social type of ecosystem that people can participate in, and opening up and letting it be free for users to gain interest, and then that will build kind of a clip people to want to purchase the product, or more of a conversation or interest in purchasing the product. But that's kind of the quick version, since we're the last group. So if anybody has any questions or feedback.
So what kind of data would be gathered? So the piece of hardware would gather data as I'm biking.
So it would know your GPS location, and it's also accessing. It's an open platform, so everybody else who is using the device it's all feeding back, and so it's kind of directing you to go down the most the path of least resistance in a way. So the biking route that would get you to your destination with the least amount of like outside interactions through cars and other things, with the most bike paths, etc.
So let's say I'm riding, and all the people in this room are riding from here to wherever, West Philly. And so then Tristan decides to get on his bike, and he's presumably going to use this information. How does he get it? Like, he's riding his bike. How's he getting that information into him as to like where to turn and go?
So
he's not looking at his phone.
Yeah, so the idea is we develop a language, a sensory language,
Okay.
and so that's what directs you when to turn, where, and how to get there.
Okay.
So you don't have to look at your phone.
Either like light, sound, or like haptic feedback.
And the thing is that most people, like, there's more information communication done on social networks. In most social networks, it tends to break down in groups, interest, and your kind of friends. And so what happens is that based on your interest, like we're using like the bikers, they could have a specific interest, and they now share this information on the best, it's kind of like an aggregate information within that group on how each person, like a certain part. So you have this kind of like invisible network of like, it's based on the application that directs you. And with the devices, that what happens is that it now brings down like the mobile phone, it brings it down to a smaller package where that doesn't distract you from what is going on around you. And there's a technology I know that's like that you can actually have a Bluetooth that is very small and invincible that could like also create that voice response to direct you to where to go. You could also get calls. In that way, what happens is that you now can now focus on your surrounding and be able to actually get this information passed to you.
Why build a product when you can leverage the phone to send it to Bluetooth earpiece or something like that? Like, why have a device that I have to pay $100 and something for?
So the whole idea is, and the whole reason why wearable technologies is an emerging trend is because a lot of our mobile technology is very invasive. And when you think about your experience of navigation and the whole idea of like looking at a screen, like for example, I have used the Waze app before while driving, and it's actually very dangerous from my personal experience because I'm trying to look at a screen while driving on a road. Like they don't really work together. But if you can have a sensory feedback of how to get to a place, I think it's very intuitive and feels very natural than looking at a screen to direct you somewhere.
Your phone will already give you verbal directions if you choose to get them. Why not put an earpiece in one ear so you can still hear what's going on around you and let the phone just tell you without buying a bracelet?
Google Maps has the same thing for bicyclists. So it gives you a bike route and gives you directions, vocal if you would want to. So you can
But it
just
doesn't,
it's
it's not like community, like, it just says bikes are different than cars, so like if
I think it's more like a situational condition. Like with the earpiece, there are some situations you might not need that earpiece. So it's kind of like encompassing the whole body sensory system there. So touch and auditory, and I don't know, not about the visionary side, but I think most people are more. You could get to do more with having something on your wrist that kind of like respond to you, and you can kind of like what that each response, like maybe a vibration or a sound, can send to you, and you intuitively know what that message is sending to you. But with the earpiece, it's not always conducive enough in certain some situations for you to have that in your earplug. You want to have to take it out,
Plus, it's not really safe to have an earplug while you're biking in your ear. When you think about it, it really isn't. It's all about increasing safety and almost directing traffic and bikers to the most safe, best way to get to a place. And even if you have roads that are not designated bike lanes, but you have more bikers than cars on that road, technically we created a bike lane without physically having lines on the road. And it's because the more users that use it, the better that feedback.
I'm in total support of the haptic experience overall. I think that it's, I think that we're starting to see it becoming a real thing. What I would challenge you on is not, is that a worthwhile technology, but so anytime you have something in really early stages of adoption, you're going to have it adopted in the very highest value use cases because it's going to be the most expensive, it's going to be, the very early adopters are going to, I don't feel like bikers are probably the largest market or the most willing to pay. That's not to say that it doesn't solve a problem, it does. But if what you're interested in is providing haptic feedback for something where you want to use your other senses for other things, which is totally valuable, it seems like you could probably find other applications for that. Maybe industrial applications, maybe operation of heavy machinery, I don't even know, but it feels like there's a lot more dollars out there than bikers.
I think coming with that question, that's why the app is kind of like open source. It kind of gives people the first-hand idea of like what this is about, and then it now pushes them maybe to like, let's see if I can make the purchase for the product to have that. That's why it's like free at first to give people a primer taste of it.
But no, I totally agree with you, and that's why when thinking of this, the whole idea is we're just trying to think of a niche, something to focus on, and then grow from there. But I totally agree. I mean, it's very much a niche market. We were trying to keep it as simple as we could because, I mean, from a product development side, it requires a lot of knowledge that I don't personally have. But I know to actually be able to achieve this, it has to be very simple. And so that was kind of the ideation behind focusing on the bikers because it is a community, and especially with a lot of bikers, I mean, you're either a biker or you're not. You either commute every day or you don't commute at all. And so I feel like because that market is kind of a hardcore user, they would be more apt to maybe possibly purchase that.
What about people who are, I mean, there are a lot of cyclists who spent a lot of money on whatever gear they can get, but they're like not just commuters. Those people are the ones who are out on the weekends, you know, doing it as an athletic thing, as a competition thing. What about those people?
So it's funny because when you think about it, I feel like there's a whole social side to this, and it opens up a lot of doors, and some more thought has to go into that. But I think there's totally a market for a lifestyle like user to, you know, be able to use the navigation tools, but in some sense also use some type of social tool that engaged with other lifestyle bikers.
In LA, they have something called bike training. So they have bike captains, and they have set lanes or set pathways, courses. So that people pick that, you know, from here to there they have to go, and they form a kind of train. So, you know, something to that effect probably. I think you have two problems there. One is the social side, and then the other is the product side. So if you know, as Anita has been saying, they should take one thing, you know, capture it probably, and you have a better success rate.
Totally, no, I totally agree. There's multiple problems that need to be looked at.
Maybe almost like a training tool, right? Like I'm moving back in the city. My wife and I are moving back in the city. Fairmont, actually. But I'd love to like commute on a bike, but I probably would be killed in like 30 seconds, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm just thinking like maybe this thing would be, you know, you could like give people that want to make the transition, it could give you best practice, like if you get out of where you're supposed to be or guide you or something.
Well, yeah, and it's the whole idea is to give you an enhanced experience because, you know, I used to bike every single day to work, and you know, I used to live in Fairmount as well, and it's so great because going up to Fairmount is beautiful. You go up 22nd Street, then you have the Parkway. It's like so simple, but getting into Center City, it can be very chaotic because once you get down to the Parkway, there's no like bike lane to get into Center City to like make a right to go south. And so you either go through City Hall, which can be very dangerous, or you have to go down like 17th Street, which is very narrow. There's a lot of traffic. So it's not a positive experience. And the whole idea is to enhance your experience and to take you to your destination in the best way.
I feel like when coming with finding your market, I think the social network kind of is like a guide because like with the data coming in, we might actually start seeing from who actually is finding this very useful to them. That's why the social side of people is very important because eventually it might not be just the bikers that really finds very useful. They might be people that need it because of it takes away a lot of what they have from the phone, like making them like more useful to their bike, add more value to their bike. So the social network tool feels like it was forced to identify the market.